and welcome to another episode of the Complete Agent Podcast, where each week we get together to talk all things estate agency. As ever, I am joined by my colleagues in the industry, James Kendall and Ian Storey. My name's David Warburton. Lads, how's your week been? Let's go to you, JK.
Oh, there we go. He's back. Mate, you held that together rather impressively, considering you were just laughing 5 minutes before.
I know. I've been laughing on most of the intros in the last few weeks. I don't know what it is, but you guys are just so funny.
Is it because we're all together and not one of us is on holiday for a change?
Have you got any holidays booked now, apart from getting towards Christmas? Because it feels weird that the three of us are together 2 weeks in a row. And it also feels weird that Ian Storey is here, because Ian Storey is regularly on holiday. So,
yeah, he's going tomorrow on holiday, aren't you, Ian?
What?
You're popping off.
Come away, chat.
Yeah.
Are you joking? You have to do it again in 2 weeks?
Yeah, it's half term.
Oh, right.
That's the rules, mate. Anyway. How's my week been? My week's been good. Signed a couple of good stuff up. Where obviously last week was a little bit of a depressing week in terms of stuff that had fallen through, and we weren't having a great time with fall throughs and fickle buyers, etc. But we're starting October off really well. Some good sales, some good instructions in the pipeline. Again, how crucial it is when you get houses on the market to just get it on at that price band below where you think it's going to be. We had a great result this week. It's only a tiddler, but again, 280 house. Well, it's a 300 grand house, but it was we listed offers over 280, and it's gone for just over 3. Just because there was so much interest. We had 10 back-to-back viewings. Same with the house we've got at 625. Had loads of interest on that. So yeah, it's just. I mean, the only thing about that is that we did 10 viewings on that and it didn't go anywhere. But there's a few things bubbling. But yeah, we've got agreed a sale on one at £1.25. We've got obviously the £3.5 million. I think I mentioned the other week. That's coming on now. We're taking some photos of the new barn we're launching at 2.25. We've got a few bits and pieces sort of bubbling. It feels fairly positive. I've got all my envelopes sat waiting for our quarterly update to go out. As I know we were discussing yesterday and the day before about just tweaking content and getting it all together, what we're gonna write about, etc. There's lots of things that are out there in the universe at the moment, that questions that are being asked by people that we're writing to get out to the masses, that I think will educate and entertain our audience in terms of our potential client base where we're sending the letters out to. Maybe we'll unpack some of that today, because we had a conversation earlier off air, didn't we? And you were saying about what do we advise clients in terms of do we go pre-budget, do we go post-budget? But we'll get into that later on. But yeah, week's been good. Why don't we flick it back to you, Dave, because you always tend to go last.
Yeah, well, not much to say, lads. It's been a bit of a quiet week, to be honest.
Not much to say for Dave Warburton.
I know.
That's a world exclusive.
I know. I mean, look, to me, at the moment. What?
Are you okay? You okay, hun?
Well, do you know what? When they say that when you hang around with certain people for a period of time, you start to become like them. They always say, be around the most 5 successful people, don't they? And
I know what you mean, lads.
Yeah, and after the podcast intro last week, when you were incredibly depressing, it feels like it rubbed off on me. So it's actually your fault. So I'll try that again. Oh, it's been a great week, lads. Oh, what a week. What a week. No, it has, to be honest, it has actually been a good week. It's quite quiet.
You wouldn't know it.
I know. We've had a quiet week. So only a couple of sales in the bag this week, which is not great. So ticking over. The main positive for me at the moment is that I have quite a lot going on instructions-wise, quite a few things coming on. So we're at another take on this morning, a really nice house that's coming on at 800,000. We did one at 750 yesterday. So nice gold dust stuff, and some really good irons in the fire. And a lot of the conversations I'm having at the moment are, again, what you've just alluded to there, JK and Ian, what you were talking about before you came on the pod. Do we list now? Do we wait? Got quite a few people at the moment, wanting to wait for spring. So, we've been talking about market ready, but the reality is when you're talking about going on the market at that point in time, market ready is much better in spring, isn't it? So tough conversations to have, but some really good stuff and things for the future, no doubt. But my valuer Scott's come in. He's picked up a few nice instructions on the We Locate side, which is great. And we're in a nice spot really going into the final quarter. And I've also been able to spend quite a lot of time in the office, which has been really nice. I've quite enjoyed doing that because for the last 2 years, as you both know, lads, I've been all over the place. So to have that calm a little bit now, and to be able to get that balcony view, I've just made that up. That's mine. Can I keep that? Right. I've not really, obviously. But yeah, so that's been nice to sort of take a view from outside and work on the business rather than in it so much has been pretty good as well. So
should we just give some context behind that, Dave, as well? Like
what do you mean?
Claiming that as your own. Well, I forgot to mention on my week, I was on Matt Giggs' podcast this week, Estate Agent Showdown. And I met industry legend Ian White. We had a good old conversation about the industry. And I just said that, I felt that I thought that the market had a bit of a recession. I can't keep a straight face. I felt the market had a recession kind of feel about it, but it wasn't a recession, and that obviously is coined by Dave Warburton. But rather than crediting Dave on the pod, I took it off myself. So
so basically, Ian White is going to be going around saying James Kendall came up with this great quote last week.
Yeah.
And it's just going to get exponential growth. And JK is going to be on TV. He's going to be on different shows, giving advice, and it's all about that quote.
GMTV. So, what would you say to somebody selling their house, James? Well, you're not selling your house anymore. You should buy his next house. And we always say, valuation's subjective. It's fantastic, James.
James, you are amazing. Oh, dear. Anyway, let's get it back on point. My week has been quiet but productive, so that's where I'm at. Over to you, Jake. Not you, JK. We've had enough of you, Ian.
Can I just say as well, the gilet is back, isn't it? It's it's officially autumn when Ian Storey wears a gilet.
Yes.
Do you know what? You're going to ask me about my week, and our new valuer started last week, and so he's been going out on his own vals this week. Good, all good. I think he's going to be really good. And the reason I mentioned that was he loves a gilet. What was that part of the recruitment process?
No, he's a really crap valuer, but he loves the gilet.
So
he lives in a barn.
He wore 3 different gilets on 3 different days. I was like, oh my God, you are my absolute hero. So whether he's any good at listing or not, I'm not bothered. He's got a job as far as I'm concerned. But no, on a serious note, he's doing really, really well. He's slotted into the team really well. So fingers crossed, we've now got the perfect team, I think. We've also had Michelle here this week. So Michelle, who obviously has a part to play in TCA as well, runs our training and coaching. So that's monthly. So we had Michelle here for sort of day and a half, full day yesterday. 2 parts to that really. Half a day's training, some one-on-ones with the team, but also a half day of looking at our figures, our growth, our projections, and the things we're trying to look at over the next quarter. So that was absolutely brilliant. Loads of takeaways there. We've not had any listings in the last week since the last podcast, but there's stuff bubbling that I know is going to come. Good run on sales. 1, 2, 3, 4. Definitely agreed. All gold dust sales. So average of 600 grand, 12 grand average fee, 50 grand into the pipe, and an offer on one yesterday, 1.2. That's on at 1.25. So I think Phil will get them up. So that's good. We did a really good price drop back end of last week. I agreed a 250 grand price drop with the seller. Basically, he's already moved. He's already kind of moved, and he wants to get it sold. And he was saying, "Well, shall I just drop it by 150?" And I was just bold, and I went for the big change, got it onto a new price point, and it's worked. It's attracted interest, which there hasn't been in it. So that's really good news. We had 3 really good launches this week, all gold dust again, all sort of between 500 and a mil, all 2%. And we've got 3 lovely shoots. So one today at 1.5. And as I look out my window now, the sun is shining. Another one, 900 grand earlier in the week. And then we've got an absolute belter on Friday to shoot tomorrow, which is
how much is it?
2.5.
I'm doing 3.5 next week.
It's our Bond villain's house. So I'm really, really hoping. The weather tomorrow is meant to be horrendous.
Yeah, it is.
That's ideal.
Yeah. So we might be rearranging it, sadly. But it's built into the sandstone ridge. Okay, so
I'm looking forward to seeing that video.
For those who don't know, the sandstone ridge runs throughout Cheshire. It's a big walking route, and this house is literally built into the sandstone ridge. So all around the back of the house, there's like a cave that runs around the back where you can see the sandstone. And then the house is built on the inside of it, and it's got a lovely big swimming pool, sauna and stuff downstairs. It's just mega. So hopefully the weather will change tomorrow, but it probably won't. But overall, good. The team in a good place. So no complaints from me, chaps.
Good. Should we get into a bit of unpacking of what we were going to talk about? I think we were kind of talking about the market updates that we write, obviously, for members and we send out ourselves. But some of the topics in there are questions that are being asked by the sort of general public and by would-be sellers. Ian, you said it was your example, I think, about the seller you were discussing sort of pre or post-budget.
Yeah, so we've got a property, high end, listed. We had a sale agreed on it at, a really good price. I'm just going to be sort of careful of how much info I give away, but we had a sale agreed on it at a really good price. The sale fell through. It went back on with a new date and basically hasn't had the interest really. That's probably 2 months now, maybe 3. But I've got a great relationship with the sellers. She's getting touted left, right, and centre by Savills, etc. But I've got a great relationship with her. She understands why we're the right agent to stick with, and she's happy to look at the price. Ultimately, she wants to move on. But of course, the question at the minute is: do you wait until the budget before you make that price change, or do you do it now? Because there is a lot of talk about what tax changes might come in and how that might affect the higher end. However, of course, it's 2nd of October and the budget isn't to the 26th of November. So 2 months of time, potentially wasted time if you wait until the budget. And then, of course, if you wait until the budget, it's then Christmas, isn't it? So you then...
Well, let's unpack it and let's have a look at, where things could go. Because I think a lot depends on the client's situation. If they're not needing to sell and they're not bothered about moving for another couple of years, maybe the argument could be to have the 14-week break and assess the situation early part of next year. Or if they just want to get on with it, do it now because you don't know what's in front of you at the moment. And I think what that fall through has probably shown you and shown the seller is that the way the market is, there's obviously been, and it's the thing that people don't want to talk about at the moment, is that there has been a drop in the market, whether people like it or not, but it's not affected on land registry yet because the data is so lagged. Now we're talking about data that I'm seeing on Dataloft. New area might be different, but from what I can see here, prices on Dataloft, for example, in a lot of the areas we go to, seem to be sort of back at sort of 2022 levels. But what we're seeing at the moment is prices almost being agreed at maybe COVID levels in some instances, so sort of 2020. So it does feel like there has been a subtle shift in price, certainly at the upper end, I would say, and more so in, I would say, houses that need work. Now, I think the houses that are sexy and have that once in a sort of generational opportunity in terms of it's got the wow kitchen, it's got the wow bathroom, it is all singing or dancing, those ones I think will command a premium whatever the market, and that there's that huge element of subjectivity about it. But I think what I'm seeing here, looking at the data and what's being agreed, is I think prices are almost getting to the stage where they are at that sort of Jan 2020 level in some instances. And having a good pricing strategy and getting it on at the right price is key in the beginning to make sure you maximize it. But also, let's unpack what could happen. So, if you're talking about 150k drop or 250k drop, whatever it is, if you wait until November, what then happens if the market reacts badly to the budget? Do you then drop it again? Does the market drop again? Yeah. There's so many different angles and go on, Dave. You look like you want to jump in there.
To say, and I mean, the thing is, it's like we've said. If you say, right, let's wait until after the budget, there's no point reducing it in December, really, unless you're doing kind of the between Christmas and New Year, or even just January. So at that point, then you're waiting. What we're saying essentially is that you're waiting another 3 months, aren't you? October, November, December. If the budget is favourable and none of this goes ahead, and you do a nice reduction after it, and it's January, say, I think that would be fantastic. If the budget's not favourable and you've already done the reduction, then like JK's saying there, do you reduce it again? I think you can only work to the market that you're in. And
it is about the circumstances of the seller, isn't it? And
very much so.
This seller needs to sell it.
They have to
reduce. You want to wait.
Yeah, get on with it. Then that would be my advice now.
Yeah.
So it would be reduced. The thing is, I don't necessarily think the level of reduction will matter now, if that makes sense. So if the budget's terrible, and we now know that these very, very high value homes are going to be taxed even further, it may be a double reduction might be what's needed, because it's really going to have a massive impact, I think, on that end of the market. That said, people have been asking me what generally happens and why it is a little bit quieter at the moment in certain price brackets. My view is that it's the same as any major announcement. We get a lull leading up to it. There's a lull after it, and then everybody gets back to normal. And it's usually about 4-8 weeks before, and then 4-8 weeks after, something like that.
I think also...
Sorry, mate, can I just jump in just very quickly, mate? Just on that, just on what you just said, Dave. There's also another argument that I don't think is being talked about, and I think everyone assumes that when the budget happens, what will be said will be affected immediately. Let's not forget the last budget, when they said about the stamp duty, it didn't come in until the end of the tax year, which is why we had the stamp duty holiday. So there's an argument to be said in this scenario, and I've had this conversation with clients as well, that let's get it on now, let's deal with it now, because if we get to the budget and they say, right, the stamp duty is changing to X on the 31st of March, which we know they love to do, you've then got, what's the average? 154 days to try and complete after a sale's agreed. The average time to agree a sale is 63 days now. Like, the math isn't mathing. Let's get it ahead of us now. Let's try and get a buyer now, and then give ourselves the best possible chance to complete before the tax changes to secure the price.
Yeah.
That's all I was going to say, mate. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, that's a good point. And the other thing I was going to say was maybe the minute other people at that level are waiting to reduce until the budget. So if you make the change now, it might get you ahead of them.
I think that not everybody is aware of what's happening as well. I mean, there's so much.
Should we talk about that a little bit? Should we unpack it a little bit?
What do you mean, being aware of it?
Yeah, and what to be aware of.
Yeah, I mean, when I'm speaking to people at the moment, they're not fully aware that change is coming, and particularly if they're on the market and having a bit of a tough time, wondering why it might be. So having that conversation is important. I had a chat with somebody last night, and he's come on the market at 600,000 with us, and he's not had a viewing in a couple of weeks. And sometimes you get that. Oh, why is it? But he was on at 650 with another agent, and the conversations we were having, in all honesty, is what he paid for it was in the fours 6 years ago, and we've not seen much of an increase in his area if we look at the overall package over the last sort of 6-7 years. So my conversation with him at that point was, yes, you have done work to it, but we've had this chat on previous podcasts, but a lot of what he's done is maintenance. He's not extended the house in any way, shape or form. He's not even changed the kitchen. They wrapped it, and they've not done major improvements to it. So my point to him at the time was, whilst it looks great and we appreciate what you've done to it, adding solar panels and making it more energy efficient and things like that, all of these things are not necessarily going to add lots of value. Your square footage will, of course it will, but you've not actually done that. So all the numbers actually pointed to 550, but because he's had really bad advice, to be honest, in the past. I mean, the previous marketing was really poor from the old agent, and the price point that he was on at was so poor at 650. To get him to come down to 550 was a real challenge. So he felt he wanted to start somewhere in the middle. And again, as a business owner, you assess motivation, don't you? What's happening here? He has to sell this home, so I'll take it at 600. But what I was saying to him last night was, my biggest worry for you, and it's very, very early days, it only takes one. Sometimes you need a bit of patience, blah, 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 is you've not had a single inquiry on Rightmove. Now, he he understands what's going on at the moment, and he actually said to me, "Do you think it's something to do with the changes that are potentially coming in?" And yeah, it could well be. I think a lot of people are waiting to see what happens, and there could be a lull, and you might just need to be patient. But obviously, talking about it from what you mentioned at the start, pricing is key at the start. I think the challenge, JK, jokes aside, with that recession feel, if you like, where the market seems to be resetting a little bit, you sometimes just don't know what that number is.
No,
you genuinely don't. I mean, if we go back to the COVID times, and you were going out to valuations during COVID, and it was quite positive in a sense, because you couldn't put a value on it, because you thought, well, it's just going to go way over whatever I've priced it at anyway. So you'd be saying to your vendor, well, we think it's 700 on paper, but right now the market is utterly crazy. Interest rates are really low. They're not in stock. You're going to get a premium for this. We'll have 10 viewings in the first weekend, and we'll be best and finals by Monday. It's now the complete opposite. So all the stats are opposite, aren't they? So interest rates are higher. There's more houses for sale. There's fewer buyers in the market. So all that is the complete opposite. And the valuations that you're putting on stuff, you're looking at all your price per square foot, and it's outdated, and a lot of markets are in a transitional period where they're coming down a little bit. So most people want to start higher than the property's actually worth, but the challenge is now getting them to a position where we want it on an amount that's maybe below market value to attract that interest. And I think that's the challenging thing. And I think what you need to try and present to people in a market like this is a bit of a deal. I've got people openly saying to me, buyers saying to me, I want a deal. I had one last week. He's a cash buyer. He's got 900 grand in the bank. And he says, I want something under market value, or what he perceives to be under market value. And that's the type of buyer you've got out there, I'm finding at the moment.
Yeah. I think I agree. It's the timing of the year as well, isn't it? If we were talking about a budget in April, it'd be different, wouldn't it? But it's just before Christmas.
Yeah.
So it's a double whammy, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think if she didn't need to move, this particular seller, I'd be saying, take it off for 14 weeks.
Well, I think you just crack on, mate. I would just crack on. Yeah, like you say, it depends on their situation. If it is just a general lifestyle chain, doesn't matter if it sells now, doesn't matter if it sells in a few years, then by all means, take a break and relaunch and assess in the start of the year. But then, then you've got the spring budget. What can happen in the spring? How long do you wait? Just crack on. Gates's got a great analogy from when he was buying his house and the Brexit vote came in. There'll always be people that sit on their hands. I mean, let's be honest. There's been people that have sat on their hands for the last 3-4 years waiting for prices to come down. Yeah, and they've paid, probably 48-50 grand in rent in the meantime in the last 4 years, waiting for prices to come down. And they could have been paying their own mortgage off, and now sitting there going, "Well, I told you prices would come down." Yeah, well done. You've just rented for 4 years when you could have been living in your own house for the last 4 years. So there'll always be people that sit on their hands. The other thing as well is, I think, that isn't talked about enough. It's just all of the bad news that is constantly being put around. So not necessarily about the budget and about stamp duty and possible changes that could come into effect, but you're constantly bombarded with things like the war in Ukraine and Russia and Israel, Palestine, all that stuff going on. It's all negative. The American stuff, the far right, the far left. Like, I just feel like, this is why I stay away from the news. And I speak to friends of mine, and they're like, "Oh, well, it's not good out there at the moment, is it? This is happening, that's happening." And I just think, do you know what? Just you could sit there doom scrolling all the time, and you could almost talk yourself into oblivion by reading all of the bad things that are happening in the world. When
you can't change it.
100%. And you got to focus on your own reality, because what's the saying? Your perception is your reality. And you just focus on what you can do and what you can control and what's going on in your life. If there was a world war, then there's going to be a world war. Sitting there worrying about it, and with your, stockpiling pasta in your garage is not going to make a difference, But the reality is, just get on with it yourself and live your life and be positive for the things you can actually affect change on. Just on the stamp duty thing, which I think is obviously, in CGT, have have you kind of unpacked what that could be, and have you seen the rumours that are around?
No, not in detail. No, have you?
How about you, Dave? Have you seen anything?
Yeah, but I'm very cautious about putting
it out as gospel.
Yeah, because it's all hearsay at the moment.
Well, I think what would be good though is to let's possibly just quickly talk about what each of those options are, and rather than I think the negative spin that everyone seems to put on all of the options, what does it actually look like in practice? Let's be honest. The CGT on your personal residence, and this will be clipped as a soundbite forever if I'm wrong, but I think they would be very foolish to do that. I can't see them doing that. In my opinion,
you can't see them doing that at all.
Not on a personal residence.
No.
Why would they? I mean, you need the top end of the market to move. I mean, even Labour. Here we go. Set myself up for a fall here, but even they must see that they need the top end of the market to move out. And why would you penalise you just wouldn't get any money because they just sit there and go, I'll just die in the house then instead.
The thing is, right? Whatever they do, it'll still impact property prices one way or another, negatively or positively. So if they get I'm not against actually a seller having to pay stamp duty, for example. Like if they had to pay the tax on the sale of their property, I'm not massively against it if it means that buyers can buy more. The problem, what you'll probably see though, is because we've had it before. When you take away that, if you took away stamp duty from a buyer, what happens?
They pay more for the house.
They pay more for the house.
Well, and do you know what I was going to say on that is that if it does flip to the seller stamp duty, you can effectively finance the stamp duty within the purchase, can't you? Because it'll add more liquidity into the market.
It'll push prices up. That's my view. And obviously, if then the higher value homes are paying way more. I think, the type of people that you're dealing with, they'll probably hold out for more, but I can't see anything else other than it'll probably just push prices up. I mean, for us, what will end up happening is that certainly that up to that £500,000 market, I think it'll thrive. So that the gold dust that you're talking about, Ian, anything up to they're talking about anything up to £500,000, aren't they? Probably won't carry it or very limited stamp duty for a buyer. So if just imagine that goes overnight. Oh my God. That market will thrive, no question. Anything up to £500,000, but even then, just above it will thrive. I think. I think the very top end of the market will be pissed off. I mean, like I said, I've had a house that was agreed pretty much at 1.6 million, subject to this second viewing. It was almost nailed on. The house was 1.75, 1.6. The owner is happy with. They've pulled the plug on all this speculation because they just think, well, it's never going to complete by the time the budget comes. If we get instant news overnight that all of a sudden we're having to pay further tax on that, then it's not worth us selling it for 1.6 million. That's their thought process.
But why should they though? That's the thing. Well, I think any changes like that, if you look at history, generally, it comes in the next tax year, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I don't know. This is why it is causing so much uncertainty at the moment because we don't know. I mean, we don't know, and we're in it every day, and it is speculation.
But let's look at the positives though, that's important to be able to articulate to sellers that it will add more liquidity into the market. But also, we only know what's in front of us now. If there are any major detrimental changes, it will shift the whole market. So you only know what you've got in front of you now. So yes, if you don't need to sell and you're worried about this, then by all means, park it. But if you are motivated to sell and you've got personal reasons to sell and move, then just get on with it. There's the other thing as well that I've seen floated around about them scrapping the initial stamp duty and you just pay in a tax every year, like a house tax every year, over £500,000. So there's different ways that you could look at that. And you could go, I'm not paying tax on that. But again, if you're paying, let's say, I don't know, $3,000 a year, rather than paying 25 grand up front, the average person moves every 7 years generally. That's 21 grand over 7 years, rather than 25 grand up front. We live in a world where nobody on this podcast, and probably nobody listening to this podcast, with the exception of a few, probably owns their car now. Everyone's paying monthly. Everything is subscription based these days. Would you rather pay $3,000 a year over 7 years and arguably probably pay less, or pay $25,000 up front, because that's a big chunk of your liquidity when you're trying to buy?
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a great point. I hadn't thought about it like that at all, but that's a great point.
But that's just another way to spin it. Everyone's spinning the negativity, because everyone's thinking, well, look, I'm going to be hit for $25,000 and I'm going to be potentially hit for another $3,000 a year, and they're going to do this and they're going to do that. The reality is we don't know, but let's unpack these scenarios. I have these conversations with clients every day. Let's run through the possibilities. What does it actually look like? Well, this is what it actually looks like. How does that sound? Yeah, okay. How does this sound? Okay, let's not just focus on the negatives all the time. Mm-hmm. Let's focus on how it could be impacted positively. Yes, no one wants to pay more tax, but the reality is, unfortunately, death and taxes are two things that are certain in life. One thing that I think could possibly happen, because I don't know if you saw the interview with Starmer the other day about VAT.
No.
And, I think, what's her name? Laura Koonsberg or something? That's her name. She basically said to him, would you rule out putting VAT up to 22%?
Yeah.
And he was like, well, we're not going to discuss the budget at this time. So, that says to me that, it could be another 2% on top of VAT. So, but I mean, that doesn't really make much difference to us, realistically, because, yes, it will in our pockets when we buy things personally.
Yeah.
As a business, it's just you plus VAT. It is what it is, isn't it? The VAT is just the VAT. So I think there'll be things like that happen. I think personal income tax will probably go up. I think that's where they'll hit, because they did say, if you remember, you turn back the clock 4 or 5 months ago, the autumn budget would hit the sort of middle class, the middle market, and they have the broadest shoulders to take on all. And
whenever you do Keir Starmer, I always think of Zippy and Rainbow.
Right, I think of Brian Badondi. Remember Brian Badondi from Phone Jacker?
Oh, superb.
Hello.
Brilliant.
Put out the budget.
So good.
So I just think, look, let's focus on the positives and try and articulate it to your clients in such a way that it doesn't have to be doom and gloom, because there's enough doom and gloom out there as it is.
Yeah.
And assess the motivation. If you're gonna want to move, and you want to move, and you need to move, let's just get on with it, because you can sit there waiting forever. Like you said earlier, Ian, we could wait to the November budget for something to drop there. And look at the negatives of what could happen on there. Everyone's thinking, oh, we'll wait and then we'll see what happens then. Well, if they then announce that, okay, yeah, X amount is going to happen, it's going to be negative, and then you've got until March the 31st to change it.
Yeah.
Then you're X amount of days, and then you've got Christmas after the budget's announced. So you've realistically got 2.5 weeks of marketing time, which people aren't really that active around Christmas time, if we're all honest with one another. Solicitors are going to close for 2.5 weeks as well between Christmas and New Year. So there's 2.5 weeks of conveyancing time out the window. Then you've then got another year where we've got a rush for the stamp duty holiday, haven't we?
Yeah, I just wanted as well. There's a couple of so Gatesy does a blog each month, and David Lindley pushes it out as well. And there's some interesting statistical data on there, I think, that needs talking about, and it is very much in the premium end of the market. So it looks at houses above 750,000, and interestingly, year to date, stock levels in the premium market. So when we say in the premium market, we're looking at 750 plus. They're up 13% against the same period last year. Now this is interesting, lads. So compared to 2022, it's a 79% increase in premium stock, which is mental.
Yeah.
Mental.
Gosh.
Sales are up 8% year on year. But so are price reductions. So price reductions are at record highs for the 5th consecutive year. And the other thing that's up is withdrawals. So what that signals to me is that there's even at the top end of the market, there's competition amongst properties. It also signals that prices are too high, and house, lots of reductions taking place. So prices are still too high, and withdrawals suggests that people aren't prepared to accept the new norm. Or if there's any recent ones, maybe they are thinking about what's going to happen with tax changes and stuff like that. And obviously, since the Labour government came in, I think there's been a lot of objection to various different policies. So even there, you can see, looking at the statistical data here, there's just a nationwide problem that we've got a lot of overpriced stock, and that's why I say about the recession feel. It does. It just feels like we're trying to find what is the new norm before it gets going. But one thing is for sure, there'll always be something externally that has a direct impact on the property market.
Always.
And right now, there's an upcoming budget, and yes, things are probably slowing down in your area. And guess what? They'll probably be slow shortly after it. So all you can do, like you've said, JK, is work to the market that you're in. Be really positively identify the negatives, if that makes sense, and spin it in a way that that gets people moving. You can only be honest. Like I said, the conversation I had last night with this guy who's on at 600,000 now. I told him the truth. His house is probably not where he thought it was. He feels he's reduced 50 grand. I said, you're not, because it was never worth the 650 it went on in the first place. You're still above what the recommended market value is for your home. So we're just picking numbers out of thin area. Or you are, because that's what you think your home's worth. The reality is the market doesn't agree with you, and that's it. And these are all the potential negative impacts in the market at the moment that could be affecting your property sale, your property price. You're not on your own. Everybody's suffering the same fate. And what we need to do is find your property's level. And if that level means that you can't sell, then that's fine. But we need to find it. And everybody needs to accept the new norm. And as we know, lads, I think it usually takes a sale in an area to kickstart it all. That'll be the new comparable for a lot of homes once it goes through. And it just feels that that's the sort of market that we're in right now. And if I'm going to go off on an even bigger tangent, I feel like if you are in the sort of premium market, the mid to high end of the market, you'll maybe, as well as having a bit of a spread. So I know you guys do brand stretch. Obviously, I've got the separate brand. What I would say is, if I only had the smaller brand, I think I'd be struggling right now.
Yeah.
To have the spread and to have the mid to higher end with the much bigger fees, it's a much better place to be. So if you're still not in that space, then it's certainly worth considering. In a market like
I was going to say as well, more than ever, I think as agents, especially in the premium space, it's the shift from going from estate agent to trusted advisor.
Trusted advisor is great. That you're right.
Is more prominent now than it's ever been, and and as an agent and as a business owner's point of view, you should be going out to each possible valuation, we'll call them, or marketing advice meeting, or whatever spin you want to put on it. But when you go and see people and you're consulting to give them the sort of best advice in the market, sometimes the best advice isn't to sell. Sometimes it's just finding out their why. And I know I've gone on about it a couple of times in the last few weeks, but it really is the difference maker. If they need to sell because they're emigrating and they've got a job abroad, then the advice is, this is what we need to do. And Dave, I know I actually do credit you this time about saying, what you say to clients in terms of, if I was to go abroad and I'd not told you what you'd done, what price would I put it on at? And this is the price that we would have got. Articulating that is key. But also sometimes you go to people, and if they are immigrating, for example, and they need a set price, then being able to have in your arsenal to say, well, okay, well, if it doesn't work out at this price, what does plan B look like? Right. Okay, well, if it doesn't happen at that price and we can't get this price, then we need to rent it. Great. Then, having a rental arm to your business, or if you don't have a rental arm to your business, having a introduction. So it's, I had a good chat with Jess Hayward the other day. She popped in to see me because she was local, and we were just talking about different sort of revenue streams in the business, and all of the different sort of add-ons. And I think if you're not doing lettings, obviously we're starting a premium lettings business, and that should launch in January now. But having that in your arsenal to go, right, having a trusted letting agent that you could refer to, it's another way of getting extra income into your business. But also you're the trusted advisor. If it's not going to sell, and there's your plan B, rather than lose 100% of the fee, at least you'll be able to claw something back, and then maybe have the conversation with them that, after it's been rented out for a year or two, the market changes, their situation changes. Inevitably, you see it. A lot of clients that I've had that have done that, where they have emigrated and they just need the money to get the mortgage paid off with the rental, it inevitably always ends up coming back for sale, because it's just an asset they don't want tied to them in another country. They've moved on with their lives, they're in another country, and it will eventually be sold. So it might be a long game. Sorry, Dave, you look like you're going to jump in and say something then.
No, not at all. I was quite impressed with everything that you had to say there, JK. I was just taking it all in.
But that's the whole thing about being that trusted advisor is, it helps you also line up a price reduction from the beginning. So if they're saying, well, we can only sell for 1.2, if it doesn't happen at 1.2, then this is option B. But also, having the sort of the, I suppose, cojones to say to them that, 1.2 doesn't work. Maybe we need to go to 1. What does it look like if you have to take 1,050,000?
Yeah, do you know what? I've had a good one with a good example of that in a way. So I've got a house that's on the market. It's beautiful, by the way. Like, he built it himself, and
the builder built it himself.
He built it himself, so it's the best one on the street, without a doubt. And it's the biggest plot as well. So it's a beautiful house, and I went to see him, and all the data and everything tells me that this house is 1.2 million, 1.25 was the natural asking price for it. He'd had another estate agent out who'd told him, lads, 1.5 million. Now, I said to him at the time, so his motivation is there. They've bought something else. They're actually building something else. They want to be in that by Christmas. So the motivation's there. And I just said to him, I cannot see this at all. There's nothing in the area that suggests 1.5 million. This is where I'm at. I don't think that you'll get anywhere near that, and I would really urge you to consider 1.25. But he'd had this other agent time 1.5, and I was pretty much double the price. To be honest, I thought I'd lost it. But he rang me and said, "I really want to work with you, Dave. Happy with your fee. Will you do 1.5 for me, just for my own peace of mind? I want to know that I've tried it, etc." And just like you said, being a trusted advisor, JK, we went through all the market again. He asked me to show me some other comps and everything, and give me my reasoning behind it. I was talking about his target buyer, because I always think, again, this is something I use quite a lot, lads, when I go to do valuations. One thing I always say to clients is, we need to think about who's buying this house, literally get into the detail of who we think the buyer is, what do they look like, what are their children like, where they go in, schooling, all that sort of stuff. And then we work backwards, and then we build the marketing campaign to find that buyer. And I said, your buyer, what you're trying to do here is compete with an area called Lostock and Heaton. And unfortunately, you don't get Lostock and Heaton prices. He thought that they did, and they don't. Anyway, we had this sort of conversation, and I gave you all my reasoning behind it. So we tried 1.5 million. And to be fair, we've had people through the door on it. And we've had 6 or 7 viewings in the first 6 weeks, which is not bad on this home. And for me, it's toppy. And anyway, last week we get an offer on it, and the offer is 1.2 million.
What does that tell you?
I go back to him. I said, "Look, I've got this offer at 1.2. I'm going to do everything I can to get it to where we need to be." And do you know what he said to me? He said, "Leave it." I said, "What?" And he said, "Leave it." I said, "I'll take it." I said, "What do you mean?" Yeah. I said, "What do you mean? I think I can get you. I think I can get you more. I think I could probably get you 1.25, 1.3. He said, "If they'll pay me 1.2 cash, which is what you're suggesting, and they'll complete by Christmas, I'll take it."
Wow.
He actually said to me, "Do you know why?" I said, "Why?" And he said, "You told me it was worth 1.25. If we'd gone on at 1.25 and I'd got an offer of 1.2, I would have taken it." Wow. And he said to me, "I now accept it was never worth that. Take it. Don't mess them around. Let's just get the deal done."
Yeah.
And I was almost like pleading with him to say, I want to get a bit more.
Sometimes you almost want to fight with them a little bit, though, so they know that Miller hasn't rolled over too much.
Yeah,
don't you?
and it's not straightforward. There's other things behind it as well. We're going again on Sunday with the buyers and stuff like that. So it's by no means an absolute done deal. But he's more in the mindset of he's now in the mindset of, have I wasted a couple of months already doing what I wanted to do? I want this done by Christmas. Let's get it done. So that's another one though, JK. I do like that trusted advisor.
Yeah.
Can I take that? Can I take that? Is that me?
No, you can't. That's mine. So, Ian White, if you're listening, trusted advisor. Trusted advisor, you can have that one. So yeah, I just thought it's something to put in there. And I just feel like you say, if you're completely honest, and I've been watching a few of the messages flying around in the TCA WhatsApp group, the private group they have. I know one of the members there was having a bit of a struggle with getting a house on at a certain price. And this morning has told us she's got it on at the price she wants, which is amazing after a bit of back and forth on the group. And you've just got to really nail it, haven't you? You've got to nail these people to the mast and say, look, we've got to get this done. If you want to do it my way.
And you've got one chance to get it right in the launch as well. Like if we go on at your price and we don't have the impact, by the time we've gone to plan B, that it's chasing a heavy ball downhill, isn't it? You've sometimes, if you can't catch the market at the right time and grab that buyer and lock them in, if the market then moves again and you go, okay, well, we'll try your price 3 months later and it's already gone down, then it's. Did you say that, Dave? Oh dear. Anyway, amazing. Before we get completely delirious, that seems like a really good place to call this week's podcast.
It does.
If you're still with us, you haven't turned it off and flicked over to opening the gates to new listings or more listings or whatever it's called. Then,
no one knows.
Never heard of him.
No.
Dave, can we point people to that data that you've mentioned that Gates's? Where's that?
Yeah, we could link it in the show notes, can't we, JK? Is that the easiest way to do it? Or if you want to drop us a message, we'll send you the link. Anything?
Yeah, that's probably better idea, to be fair. Dave, because you've got it handy.
Yeah.
So message David Warburton.
Yeah, I don't mind.
With your best sales pitch.
Message Gatesy. He's easy enough. But it's a very good article. I like it. He does one every month. And David Lindley also promotes and does nice videos about them on his Instagram page. So give him a follow as well, because he's always good value.
Yeah, perfect. Right.
Last quick one, just a quick one, lads. I want to keep telling everybody that our TCA Mastermind in December is not too far away. So if you were thinking about making a jump into 2026 and attacking your local premium market, that would be an amazing time to join, because it is a planning day, and it's a full planning day where you'll walk away with the basics of your business plan to go into 2026 and make a really strong start. You'll have all your lead gen sorted. You'll know your numbers when you walk out of the room, and I think you'll get some honest advice from us as well about where you perhaps need to be and where you need to go with everything. And set yourself up for success in 2026, because I touched on it before. I cannot stress, having been there, especially when you're in a more challenging market like this. I think only operating at the lower end, unless you're mass volume, brings a host of challenges within itself. So my just from my personal experience, if you're a bit more lower volume and you like the idea of being more quality and start to finish sort of experience for the owner, and like I say, operating lower volume but higher fees, it's definitely the best time to get in my opinion. That day is really, really gold.
There we have it. Right. So thanks everyone for listening. We will see you next week.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.